We're live, Randy.
This is the December 14th meeting of the Allegheny County Industrial Development Agency. In the room, our IDA member is John Rickey, Doug Frank. I'm Randy Shaler. I'm the vice chair. I'm sitting in for Judy Hopkins, who, due to illness, is unable to attend. Also absent is board member Rich Yule. We have guests in the room. In addition, from the IDA, our executive director, Craig Clark, and operations director, Barb Benjamin. And the guests in the room are from the Canasarega Central School District, Lester York, Sonia Robinson, and Chad Groff. From Allegheny County, Mike Healy, Terry Ross, Carissa Knapp, Allison Cameron, and Tim Boyd. So we will defer due to some attendance issues. We'll defer the minutes for the last meeting. We will approve those at the next meeting, which will be the January meeting. However, we can approve the treasurer's report. And can we have a first on the abstract report, a couple minutes to review that, and then I'll look for a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. And the banking and financial summary report?
I'll move that.
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Craig, do you have a building maintenance report?
The only building maintenance report I have is we just finalized actually putting in the condenser for the OPA building. So that's all set. And then we also finished putting in all LED lights over at the OPA building, of which we got totally refunded from NYSERDA. So that was done for no cost to us. And everything's working well.
Next item on the agenda is an executive session. Can we have a motion to go into executive session?
I'll move that.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
That won't wait very long.
Okay, very good.
It'd be faster if you guys left.
Ooh, well, that was a good one. Zing.
That's why she's the administrator.
We just want one, sorry.
Oh, okay. It's got lots of battery power. That's just in case. You know, yeah, you're okay. Leave it until I got plenty of battery. Well, we were hoping, but you know, Keith,
I'll
He had
take
a
this one
couple.
too. I'll take
He
that.
had, he brought it.
What you have, two?
No, I didn't bring one at all. Fred brought like four.
I'll take this.
Judy on there? Must be Judy did call it.
So is that Judy?
Good.
Hi, Judy. It's okay.
I know, but that's why she's not here. You heard her kind of,
Hello.
you can hear her.
Hi, it's Sonia.
And then Mike Zimmerman's there?
Yeah. Okay, we're
Can
ready.
we-
We're back
Can we
in
get a
public session.
motion to go back into regular session?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're back in regular session. All right, the next item on the agenda is the pilot deviation approval request for the Swain Recreational Center project. We have had public hearing on this subject. I know you folks, the reason you're here. Craig, can you give us a thumbnail sketch of where we are
Sure.
and what it looks like?
Well, as we know, we've been working with Swain for a while, and we've had multiple meetings with the county, the town, and the school district to discuss how we can work with Swain, because they do have a problem with paying some back pilots. And the pilot actually expired in December a year ago. And so since then, they've paid up most of their back pilots. Right now, they owe primarily this year, which is 2023, when they went back on the tax rolls and started paying full assessed value, and they will owe in 2024. So Terry sent me that information, that along with what the school district has in penalties, total is about $300,000 just over. If you add 2023, 2024, a little bit about 2022, not much, but not to the school district. And penalties for the school district is just over $300,000. And so we've been talking to Swain as to how they can pay back that amount of money, because we know it's owed. And obviously the school district has made it clear they want to get the penalties and interest paid. And so what we're doing at this point in having a public hearing is we're having a deviation of our pilot UTEP standard pilot, of which we will have a 15-year pilot, 10 years of no pilot payments, but during that 10 years, depending on how that structure, I've told Chad as well as the county and the town, we need to figure out how that structure is. They will pay back that $307,000 that is owed, and then start paying back on a pilot as well after that. And so that's where the structure is. And the other thing that the school district was clear on, and I think we're agreed upon, and so is Swain, is that every February there would be a review, and if they were behind on any payments, they would automatically then be put back on the tax rolls in March. So there would be no delay in the future if they did not make a payment. So, but we've had a number of private meetings, we've had a public hearing, we've had discussions both with all the town, the county, and the school district on this. And I think we have something that's somewhat acceptable. And I guess that's why I want to hear both from the town and the county on that as well today. Or the county and the school district, excuse me. So you have an opportunity to let the board know from the school district's perspective and the county's perspective where we are, because we have a resolution, but we have discussed, we haven't actually got the payment schedule. We just got that yesterday, so the 300. And I want you to check it too.
So I guess from a school district perspective, first of all, this kind of came to a head as I became superintendent there and just realizing the past pilot was not getting paid.
Right.
I kind of reached out to Craig at that point and just kind of said, like, I guess I've not been in a situation as a superintendent where a pilot's not been paid. We have another Whitefield pilot that's in existence right now, and they pay on time every year.
Right.
It's actually usually early. So obviously from a district perspective and in the interest of our other taxpayers, that you know, without the pilot, the property would be on the tax roll and would defer some of our community taxes. Just feeling like it needed to get resolved, which again, I appreciate Craig's working with Swain. Within the past about year, we kind of came together with Craig and also with the county to really start to have conversation about, okay, we need to figure out what this is gonna look like. And I will speak for my two board members and the balance of my board when I say, and I've reiterated this with the county, I've reiterated it in front of the Swain property owners. The school district has no interest at all in trying to do something financially that is going to shut something down. It's obviously in our best interest to have it open. Our kids work there, our community works there, our kids ski there, our community skis there. It's a gem of a place. But when I look at the greater good from a school taxing perspective, I currently have a board member that owns a farm, and if he is behind on his taxes, Terry then owns a new farm. And that's the piece that
He has been.
that's the piece that I just need to keep the
Sure.
integrity of. When you have a tax advantage, you need to oblige by the terms and conditions of that tax advantage. So that's the piece that we bring to the table. And I think moving forward, to create a new pilot, my biggest concerns were delinquency. You know, my one thing that I did communicate was, and I think in my conversation with Terry, we both have a concern about no true pilot payments being done in years 1 through 10. Because my opinion is Swain got into a situation where the last pilot got brought on board, there was no tax impact at all for X number of years. And then all of a sudden there was a tax impact and they basically couldn't catch up to it. So it's almost like you get in the habit of not having that expense and it just gets off of your financial plan, I guess is what I'll say. And I think, you know, the other piece of it for 22-23 and 23-24, that property should have been put back on the tax roll. I don't know why it wasn't. Obviously, the school district has no say in what transpires there. But again, I feel like from a district perspective, whatever that amount was does need to be part of that penalty interest, whatever the case may be.
That's why that's in there, just so you know.
Yep. I think the one question that remains in my mind is, does February 1st give enough time to basically turn things around to then look at the county and say, okay, it's back on the tax roll, here's where it's at, the assessor knows, everybody knows that, you know, come September, the property's back on the tax roll, everything's calculated the way it should be. That's the only concern I have at this point.
Well, March is the date that we have to file whether or not it's on the tax roll.
March 1st
March
is
1st,
status date,
right.
so there's not enough time between February 1st and March 1st to get that done.
Why not?
Because the assessor has to do all that to get it back.
What's the date then?
March 1st is the taxable status date. Everything that has to be recorded has to be recorded before March 1st.
Before
To
March
get on the
1st.
roll for September of that year.
Okay, so when do I have, what's the date then?
Well, you have to get it to the assessor sometime in February.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, so
But
February
you don't have
1st.
enough turnaround by the time they're unpaid.
February 1st is the date we would make the decision.
So should it be January 1st?
That's what I'm asking you. Well, we can't make it,
Well, I mean, but
January 15th, I mean, we can change the date.
I think you should make it earlier. I just don't think there's enough time.
What
in
time,
February.
that's what I'm
I would
asking.
say it would have to be sometime in January.
January 15th.
And you would know in advance whether they were paid or not for the previous year.
We can make it
By
earlier,
January.
we can make it January 1st.
I guess that's kind of where my confusion is too.
Sure.
We don't have a payment schedule in here, so you don't.
No, we haven't
we
yet.
don't- But we don't have the dates that they're due.
Okay.
So, I mean, are they gonna be due at the regular time that the tax would come out, or are they gonna be different? You know, we've been in the habit of billing them once a year for everything.
Right.
Are we gonna go back to billing them when the bill comes, you know, it's supposed to be like September or January? Or, we don't know any of that because that's not been available to us yet.
And
Terry, do you have the ability to bill more often?
Well,
Do you
really,
have
no,
the-
there's,
Do you have the functional ability to do that, rather than the annual bill?
you could bill at the time of the tax come out, so they would get a bill in September, they would get a bill in January. They have not been able to pay like that. So they've been given an annual bill and they were supposed to pay monthly, they just pay monthly. So there's a lot of nuances with this particular pilot that don't exist with others. So this particular pilot, we bill annually, and some of the smaller ones, like the solar farms, they want them annually because then they pay all at once. They pay the school from September to January, all at once in January. So, you know, it depends on the pilot and the vendor actually, who has the ability to pay, some like annual, some like bill in September, bill in January. So we can do either, we just can't bill monthly. I mean, it has to be September or January or an annual.
Either with the tax bills or annual?
Or annually, if the annual bill is in January, due by January 31st.
Would it make more sense to review January 1st then?
I would say if you review in January 1st, you're gonna know if they paid the year before.
Yeah, that's fine. We can change that. That's an easy change.
You know, you're not obviously gonna.
Yeah, we don't want to get in the point where it's not done because of bureaucracy pieces. Let's make sure it works. We can
Right,
change
I
that.
would hate to be at the point in February that you're looking at a decision was made to bill and then the assessor can't get it out.
Let's make it January 1st. We can do
You're
that.
gonna do it, I think.
Yeah,
January
that's a
1st.
simple thing. Yeah.
How do you guys feel about the terms, the repayment, the timing of getting the $307,000 to pay of the 2023-24 taxes? In lieu of pilot payment, if I understand it correctly, it's in lieu of pilot payments those first some number of years, right?
Yes.
That's how we pay the 23 and 24 taxes.
That's how they'll all be paid through. If we don't have a payment schedule yet, but
Randy, we don't have that.
No, we don't have the
We
detail.
don't know.
Schedule.
We don't have the detail, and I told Chad and I told Terry that we don't have the details of the pilot yet. So we can have it there this month. We can have that now that we got the actual amount of vote.
Well, and that's the other question I have is the amount owed is as of today. Those penalties and interest will accumulate, continue through the 10 years. So I guess that's a question that needs to be asked and answered as well. Is, are you indicating to Swain that that's frozen in time and no more penalties and interest are gonna be added? Or are we gonna continue to add penalties and interest through the first 10 years? And my other question is there anything gonna be payable in the first 10 years other than the delinquencies? Or is it just the delinquencies?
Right now it was the delinquencies, but we can modify that too.
I have a question.
Sure.
So seeing how it didn't work out so well the first time, and we're willing to try to make it work out.
Right.
What are our guarantees that it's gonna be paid for the next 10 years for that last 5 years?
There's no guarantees. Obviously, they're operational. I think they're much better placed by some of their operational things that they've done over the last 3 or 4 years. The biggest issue, and they have been paying, maybe not enough, but they've been paying at the rates we're proposing. The problem is they can't catch up because they don't have enough to pay the $90,000 per year. So that's what we're trying to do, is get them back to a reasonable amount that they think, they have confirmed they can pay this kind of rate in that $40,000 range per year. Whether or not they will, I don't know. I can't guarantee you that.
So what happens then on the responsibilities of that when it's still the next time? I'm just saying.
Well, they're gonna still owe all the money because they'll be the pilot, no matter if they pay it or not. So they'll still owe the back money. Plus, we'll have to we'll put them back on the tax rolls if they don't pay. So there is no guarantee.
So who in the agreement, where in the agreement does it list who enforces the pilot? So if we reach the point where they're not making their payments, there's a section in the pilot that lists whether it's that lists who will then say, okay, they need to be put back on the tax rolls,
Right.
we need to start that process. Who, is it the IDA then
Yes.
that contacts the county?
Well, we know we've had trouble with that before. That's where you gotta be able to enforce it. I
Yes.
mean, it's, I've been involved with pilot claims with Swain for all the ones they
Much
had.
more than
They're
I've done,
delinquent
yeah, I
on
know.
every single one of them. We get faced with this every single time. It's just now that the dollar amount is big. And, I guess my question is, they were paying $13,000 a month a couple years ago. Now they're down to $5,000 a month.
Right.
That's even less that you're proposing if it's $40,000 a year. That's less than what they were paying when they were paying on a regular basis. So I'm confused now about how you determine the $40,000 a year. And if they're gonna do $40,000 a year, and you got $300,000 delinquent.
That doesn't add up.
Yeah, if nothing adds up, I guess I don't know how you determine what they're gonna pay back. And they're gonna be in the same shape they are. It's not helping them because it's eliminating any annual payment on a tax bill. So there's no pilot payment on, they're getting behind 10 more years, using 10 years to pay back something that existed for 4 years before that. So they're not getting ahead of the game at all. I'm all in favor of keeping them and everything, but they've gotta have maybe a delinquent payment and an annual payment or something.
And we get them.
Because to give them 10 free years again, you're just getting them 10 years behind again. You're not making them pay an annual amount that, even if it's less than what their tax bill would be, they need to be on a business plan to pay something annual, and you don't go to the bank and get $300,000 not gonna pay them. You're telling them they're only gonna have to pay delinquents for 10 years, nothing else. So I'd like to see them get ahead, maybe not ahead, but at least stay stable.
Stay stable, yes.
They were doing pretty good at $15,000 a month. And then, just recently it dropped to $5,000. And I don't know where it's gonna go from there. And you talked about the payments to us for the sales of their.
Right.
How is that being? Because they're selling them for $36,000.
No, they are.
I got the deeds correct. They're $36,000, they're selling those pieces of land. That's what they're being recorded as.
Each
I
piece
got it right here.
or the whole?
Well, I've actually got the sales data, yeah.
Yeah, I've got the deed, I've got the real property tax forms that are filed with it.
Well, we have to compare that to what
We should
I
compare.
will
I
send
think we
you,
should compare.
I will send you exactly what the lawyer sent me as far as the settlement.
Well, I'm guessing that's a sales report and taking, but how are they determining that they have left over to pay us?
I'll send you a copy of it.
Or pay you.
I'll send you a copy of that. Because right now,
I'm questioning that, those dollars.
that's interesting, because that's not what the real
Yeah, I
estate.
got a couple.
Okay.
36.
Well, let's compare.
36 each piece or total?
Each piece, I believe. This is November 28th, 2023, and this recording paper, well, the transfer tax is $100,000, so that's $40, or $100, so that's $40,000. They sold the piece September of 22 for $43.
That's per
This
car.
one's 64, and so that's 36, I think.
I'll send you what I got from the lawyer.
Craig, I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
The penalties and interest currently due to the county are around $93,000.
All right,
And although our board hasn't taken a formal vote of this,
Right.
I believe there's a slim majority that are in favor of forgiving the penalties and
Right.
interest. But there are a substantial number of people that would like more information
Sure.
or are in favor of it being
Sure.
paid over time. I just want to stress, I believe it's a slim majority to
Sure.
forgive it. Assuming that's the case, 93,000 is forgiven, and we're moving ahead where this 0 to 10 years is paying on the base, if they get behind, is the county gonna get penalties and interest on those payments too? Or are we just saying we're never gonna charge penalties and interest at all on what's due to us? And my second question is, if they are defaulted any time in this agreement, do those penalties and interest reattach?
that's interesting.
And I don't think it's clear on either one of those things, so that might be something for Dan to tell us what his thoughts were when he created.
What I proposed, because we just got the numbers from Terry yesterday, now that we know the numbers. And then we need to get with the county, the town, and the school district on the payment schedule, to make sure we all agree on the payment schedule, which will be in the pilot.
And I think everybody
I know everybody's on the same page.
Swain
No, I know.
succeed and is supportive, but it's just a lot of questions.
Sure, so I think it would solve the questions if we had a payment schedule based upon now what we know is owed. And then you had some good questions on the penalties pieces, I think that should be in there somehow, yes.
I know, in just trying to get, reactions of our board members.
Sure.
We used that 93,000, we never talked about future penalties
Sure.
and interest on that same,
Okay.
base.
I think when you're talking payment schedule too, is there a provision in there about how much gets divvied up to each municipality? So if they're paying $40,000 and they pay that once a year, how much does each, do we spread that by the percentage of the tax it would have been? Or how do you want that spread so the municipalities get a portion of that? Because I'm assuming we're not gonna say $40,000 and we're only gonna split it between two.
No,
We're
you
gonna
would
split it
get
between three.
There are three
But
parts.
I guess we need to know how that percentage is gonna be determined.
Right.
Because the school right now is the highest percentage, I can't remember what,
It's about
36
two.
maybe,
Well, it's about two,
37?
it's about 2/3 of the money with the penalties and interest.
Well, yeah, I mean, we gotta, that's gotta be all determined, yeah.
Because I did know that, yes, it's gotta be in the payment schedule. So, you know, it appears to me, my recommendation, I don't know what Brandy and the board says, is we probably need to get the pilot payment schedule to everyone and have them discuss that before we go forward with the pilot. We were going to anyways, but we may want to wait till we do the formal part. Is that acceptable? Just these two parties, I know with the town will be fine.
Do we have a timeline of when we want this new pilot to take?
We want to make sure this is done, and I've talked to the board. We would like to have done it today, but if we can do it in January, that'd be fine, because we want, again, March is that matching deadline is,
Right.
if we don't
We're
do
gonna get
that.
it off on the roll, I mean, it's really not on the roll.
Right.
The assessor never put it on the roll. So it's really in limbo, it would be billed at the dollar amount we gave you yesterday,
Right.
because the budget passed yesterday.
Right,
So we got the rate from the town to be able to estimate that January bill. So the next bill, September, if we can get it done before that March 1st date.
that's what we want to make sure.
Then they can be billed, I don't know what the arrangements are in the pilot though, but if they're gonna be billed for land,
Right.
that can be put on as land, and then they will be billed separately.
So really, the next meeting is the kind of the cut deadline to
Yeah,
make
you're
sure.
gonna have to do that before March.
Yeah, that's my question.
That's what we discussed.
Yeah, the sense of urgency to move it along.
It's not today,
Do it
but it's
right.
January. We have another month. After that, we'd be in trouble with it. And we're just kicking the can down and it's gonna get worse. Yes.
Legislator Gilly, I'm here as a private citizen today and taxpayer. So let me get this straight here, number one, because I've been aware of pilots that have gone up to Swains from the ski center since 2010 when I first came on the board. And they've never been paid in a timely or up-to-date manner. The pilot's been redone several times. And now they're selling property that they don't pay any taxes on.
Well, that's why we're clarifying 80% of that's supposed to come back to helping pay the pilots.
Right,
But it's 80%,
But-
80% of
but
it.
they haven't
That's what we
paid,
gotta
they haven't paid tax on that land all the time they've had it, to speak of. And now they're selling it. If, that doesn't seem quite right to me. I mean, if I did that, if I sold my property and didn't pay tax on it, I'd be in a lot of trouble.
And Mike brings up a good point, because the problem is with the clear tax searches, that parcel is still in the pilot. And I believe that has not been taken out of this new pilot. The piece that they're selling off the pieces from, if that makes sense, Jim, is in a pilot. So that's in a delinquent state. Until they pay everything up, that is not
That would
clear.
help if you could.
Yeah.
move it on.
Yeah,
Sales
so
up.
they're selling these pieces that are in a pilot, and they all have delinquency. So they're not getting a clear tax search. Some attorneys don't care, some attorneys do, some buyers don't care, some buyers do. And I know they lost sales because of that. This parcel is still in the new pilot.
Didn't we 2 meetings ago, I thought it was 2 meetings ago, what did we do as far, when the swing folks were in here?
We
talking about-
released them for, I think it was 4 lots, and the agreement with the release was 80% of the sales would go back to paying the pilots.
Right.
And that's what we got a check for like almost $8,000, which doesn't correspond to the number that Jerry's talking about.
But are we talking about the same transaction?
No,
Or-
you released
Okay.
parcels, but that didn't release it from a pilot. That didn't clear up the delinquencies on those pieces, on that piece.
So there's
All
Because
right,
it's
we
one
are
big
talking, we're
piece.
talking about the same land.
Right.
Same land.
It's a big subdivision, and it's been
Right.
parceled out, and they sell certain parcels from that. And then they're given a map number, but they're all part of the original 16.1, I think, or whatever it is. It's just their subdivision. So that still has delinquencies attached to it from the unpaid pilot for 2011.
It's
So,
almost like having a lien on it, basically.
right, and they're not cleaning up that lien, so we can't give them a clear tax search because they still have a delinquent pilot on that parent parcel.
And that exists irrespective of what this
Correct.
board did 2 weeks ago,
Correct.
2 months ago,
Yes,
whatever it
that's
was.
correct.
Okay.
And that parcel's still in this new proposal.
And I'll send you the documents as to that last sale, because it doesn't,
And this property is mortgaged, so they're selling it or not.
I have no idea.
So, you know, if we didn't approve, you know, going forward with the pilot and so forth, and then the swing went under, you know, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, what, you know, are we gonna be, you know, the county's gonna foreclose on the property for the past, you know, past 2 taxes? And then where do we go? I mean, what result is that?
Because if they, my understanding of it is once they become delinquent and the parcels are put back on the roll, then it goes through the regular foreclosure system, just like if you did pay it or I did pay it. It's 2 years and 15 days. But these guys already have a delinquency, so we would still have to go through the same process, advertise it, whatever. We would, you know, we probably have a private sale on that as far as I'm concerned, or we have to decide that. That's, you know, we did that with the block farm. We didn't sell it through our regular auction. We did a separate sale for that block farm when they were sold to Mrs. Blair.
When you sold up.
The block barn in Cuba, that was, it was on the delinquent tax sale list, and that wasn't a pilot or anything, but that was just a big building that we took out as a sale and sold it separately, but I would assume we do the same thing with Swain, but eventually that's what's gonna happen if they don't pay.
It's like they're kicking the can down the road for, oh, big recession.
And we don't wanna own one, so, I mean, as far as I know, I don't think we wanna own one and run it, although maybe that's a great job.
And I think
For
you're
John
probably,
lives here.
you're probably looking at, what the public policy is behind even having a pilot. It's to get a business through either, you know, adding jobs, expansions, those things. I don't believe that pilots are meant to be perpetual for the entire length of that business.
Well,
And at some point in time, you probably do need to decide whether it's worth continuing on, or let the business owner decide whether they should sell it to somebody else, or, you know, or you face these tax foreclosure questions. And I think you do face that on a number of properties and other businesses in the county that aren't in pilots too. Every day, somebody has to make those decisions. The difference with the pilot is they qualify for these exemptions, come to you, you've granted it, but I don't believe they've ever been intended to be forever.
This is done your third one, I think.
Yeah.
Third or
What
fourth
we've done,
pilot.
the original one, I remember that.
I think it's their 3rd one.
Yeah, I think this is the third one, so,
Saunders had one,
yeah.
and before him, wasn't there one before him?
Phil Saunders, yeah.
Yeah,
Phil had,
I don't know if
Was it-
Robin Smith did it.
no, Phil's was the first one, I think.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Third
So,
Oh,
yeah.
that's the second. Well, yes.
Yeah, this
First,
would be the third
This is what
This
this
is the third
full
one.
one, I think. The other one.
At least, but the one we've done.
It just,
Chris and Christie Smith, or Chris and Robin Smith. I don't think they have enough, I don't remember.
is having a small business and a small farm, and it's just, there's a lot of small farms in our whole area, and we've lost a lot of them tax. You have tax sales every year because they can't make it or whatever, but, so, it should be treated the same way somehow, and somebody's got to be held responsible for if things doesn't work out or something, you know, it's kind of like we're just tethering them out a little more rope all the time. And I'm all for it being open, my kids, grandkids, everybody, it's all that, but still, it's gotta be a business plan somewhere where somebody's responsible if something doesn't get paid. And I don't know the answer. I'm glad it's your board answer, not mine.
Well, one, correct me if I'm wrong here, but one way to address the responsibility are these January checkpoints.
A hard
right?
deadline.
And if we do, and we need to make sure, I believe, that they are documented to be hard checkpoints. So that if it's bad in January, that's it, we're done. We've said this too many times, go find a buyer. You got 2 years to pay your taxes. I mean, I think that would be my opinion, that needs to be done. That's the only, there's no guarantees, but that does get us.
You got some deadlines, you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, I've got a deadline.
And
We
we're
can
solving
look at. You can only get away with it for a year, and we're gonna catch you next January. Okay? Not that anybody's trying to get away with it.
Right, no, I understand.
But it needs to be, in my opinion, we need to have some kind of teeth, whatever, in the pilot agreement that says this is it. These are the actions that will be taken. And if it will enter the normal foreclosure routine, whatever the terminology is. But I think it needs to be explicit that if you don't make it in January, that's it.
Who sets that rule up, or who sets the?
It'll be in the pilot agreement that we signed. That's why I'm saying, that's why we originally set a February date, but we can change it to a January 1st date, which makes
And I
more
think
sense.
the unfortunate reality for all of us is that this is an inherited pilot that none of us really, like, probably fully constructed in looking at it and moving forward. We're trying to address this, but something that's been in place for 10 years or 20 years that none of us around the table were the original signatories of that, and the ability to, or the lack of ability to enforce it or choosing to enforce it, is something that's now come to a head and we're trying to look at it. So I think moving forward, if we can get something, the collective can get something that's going to help all the involved parties, it's a great thing. But if it doesn't, as Randy said, this is a board now that says, you're not here, we're pulling the trigger on it.
I think that's,
And we certainly don't want Swain closed.
Nobody does.
Swain was, my mother and father-in-law, Dave and Ben Robertson, they're the ones who started Swain. So the last thing I want to see is for Swain to close. I mean, we've all,
my kids who work there,
Yeah, but-
the Sierra.
but it's
But
killing.
you gotta pay your
guys
bills,
right
I
there,
understand.
you know?
We're all saying the same thing, I think you gotta pay your bills.
We're walking behind the elephant.
Yeah.
Is there a way to shorten the repayment on
Yes.
delinquencies? Instead of having it go out 10 years, so that could be cleared up earlier?
Yeah.
And I think we need to address that, the penalties interest, if they're gonna continue, or if it has to be frozen in time, that $300-some thousand is not gonna be frozen in time, or is it their delinquent? The thing about the January, I like the January idea of reviewing that. The first year was only gonna be that school tax, it's only gonna be that payment that we would get. You're gonna do this cycle of January, you guys get this pass, we're gonna take effect March 1st, whatever it is. You're gonna look at that one, it's really gonna be one, yeah. So how do they
That's their
feel
big
about
break.
that? And that's really a repayment, it's not really, so their repayments are gonna be the same thing, if they don't pay by January, they're gonna be on the hook.
I imagine.
Yeah.
Now that we know the full money, I think we need to have one more meeting to discuss the payment schedule.
I guess the other piece is, I just kind of pulled something in Lester at this point, and we actually have a meeting tonight, so I can check with our
Sure.
board. I think one of the biggest pieces is for each municipality to figure out, okay, what is the expectation? Like I just asked them, or you, and I, again, will clarify this evening.
Sure.
Is my board and our school district okay with freezing the payment, penalty and interest?
Right.
So whatever it is as of today, Terry calculated yesterday, that's what the amount is. We're not asking for penalties to continue in subsequent
10
years.
years.
Um,
See, that's the thing.
But I
that's
think
10.
that's the reality is, think each municipality needs to make that decision.
Right.
Because if we don't have those decisions made.
Well, that changes
and
the
we have a
payment
meeting-
schedule. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think that's all good like that, but if they don't make what they're supposed to, then they're gonna be held responsible for it, like you said. I mean, there's dates,
Right.
there's lines, and we don't want, he just asked us, no, that's good. You know, if we just get the money owed to us, we're not trying to get rich on them, you know? But at the same time,
Yeah.
if they have penalties and have lines that they have to meet or else, you know? I think that holds everybody responsible for it.
Well, that helps us figuring out the payment schedule
Helps
too.
everybody out, you know?
If everybody
We have
had,
to answer to people too.
correct, I know.
When we go back to Alliance, you know, when Alliance finally went through, that was a decision that was made as a settlement.
Right.
Not pre-settlement. So that was when we took them to court for their unpaid pilot, then that was an agreement that was made as a settlement deal. We'll take away the penalty if you just pay us this, we're done. And they did, that was $1 million, I think, or something like that.
900,000,
That was
something.
that was unpaid for a long time. So maybe, yeah.
As long as there's some repercussion,
Yeah,
I think everybody's.
and it was definitely negotiated between all municipalities. at that
Right.
point.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
This is a different one, because we're not suing, we didn't have to go to court, but let's figure out what everybody wants, and we'll put it in the file.
So we don't have to.
That's right.
Yeah, well then,
Yeah,
So we
which
avoid
saves
that.
money on everything.
saves everybody's money having to go to court.
I agree.
So if you could do that, Chad, that would be helpful. Same way in the county, I'll talk to John in the town, that we'll put that together, get a payment schedule. Which isn't final until you guys see it, hope you know that.
Appreciate it.
I don't think our board will have a problem with that. I really don't. They're all hometown people too.
Sure, everybody wants it to succeed. I think they understand that, and they know they gotta pay their bills even though they haven't. So I think we're in a better place than we've been in the past.
So I guess the only piece I want to clarify, because I think we've talked about a couple different numbers, but the one number that has not come up is Terry's number in yellow was it's called $452,000.
That's with all the penalties. Yes.
And Terry, but that also includes the town and county as of
2004, hasn't even billed yet.
That includes the one that will be built in January.
That includes everything, 2003 and 4, yeah.
So
That's why it's so big, plus penalties.
I guess and I'll just throw this out, I know this is up for further discussion, but I think where Terry and I have talked about that issue of should it be 10 years out? Like basically no pilot payments for 10 years. So I guess when I do 452,000 divided by 5 years, so if there's an expectation that gets paid over 5 years without any pilot payment, so you have 5 years to pay off your debt, divided by 12, which you're saying they're paying about $5,000 a month. That's about $7,500 a month from year 1 through 5. And then if we, I guess, would advocate year 6 through the end of the pilot is the percentage where year 6 is a percentage, year 7 is a percentage, year 8, and then we start to like build up to that full assessment. I think I would feel better from a school district perspective if they have that accountability of let's get moving to what the business model needs to be on task for the end of the pilot.
Well, I know what they-
If we do it that amount, though, that's really what they would be paying annually.
That's-
approximately.
Yeah, that's not,
And they say that's not doable.
we've been saying the $40,000 to $50,000 per year is the number, not the $90,000 a year.
Right. So, as Chad said, we're talking about a
So if
monthly
we-
payment. Are you gonna let them pay monthly?
I don't care how they pay it, as long as they're paying that full, whatever the number we agreed
Is that
to.
more doable for them than an annual payment of $80,000?
I think-
Whatever that is, but $40,000, $50,000, I mean, are they gonna have, is it gonna be easier for them
They're-
to pay $5,000 a month than
Well-
$60,000 a year?
Yeah, during the summer months, that's gonna be hard, I would imagine,
Well,
pay monthly.
I don't think however they pay it is the issue. The issue is the total amount per year, and they're saying $40,000 to $50,000 a year is doable, the 80 to 90 is not.
Yeah, but that doesn't work. That doesn't fix anything though, correct?
It does based upon, what we were trying to do is figure out a reassessed value of the whole space too.
Because my experience with them is, they cannot maintain a monthly payment anyway. How are they gonna look at a $50,000 annual payment and not pay? They can't maintain a $5,000 a month payment to us. How are they gonna do a $50,000?
Well, what we need to do is get a proposal of what we think we can live with and then give it to them and then see what they come back with. I mean, that's all we can do, Chad, right?
Yeah, and again, as you and I have talked before, Craig, I
Right.
totally understand. First of all, I appreciate you involving the municipalities.
Right.
I also am fully cognizant that this group of people gets to determine what the pilot is.
But we don't
So,
want to do it without you.
Understand, all I can do is advocate what I feel like is in the best
So,
interest of the
so I
school.
think that's the best thing, is the county, the town, and the school district got to look at what's owed to them.
Yeah.
What do they think the payment schedule should look like? And I'm just telling you what they've requested of us is to be in the $40,000 to $50,000 range. Whether or not that makes sense, the process, I can't tell you that. I think if
Barry, what would it be if it was on the tax roll? Just curious. I have no idea.
About $90,000 a year at your school.
At the
and-
current assessed value.
Right. No, this is at the new.
That's a
At the lower.
The new one, the county bill would be, I have my glasses. The January bill would be $50,000
Right.
at the current assessed,
Assessed value, that's what I said, the current assessed value.
at the new rates.
Right,
And the school, last year's school is $36,000.
correct.
Okay,
So there are
so
assessments
let's further define that conversation, because I believe the other thing that's involved in the pilot, if I read the legalese that got sent.
It's
by
tough
the
to
attorney,
read, yeah, I know.
There is conversation about lowering the assessed value
Right,
by $500,000.
right.
They did, the land.
Within the
only
pilot,
On the big piece, the land only on the big piece was $735,000. The assessor has changed that now to $350,000. My thoughts are, because that's what the pilot will be based on, is land only for a few years. But I haven't seen that payment schedule, so I don't know that. So I'm assuming they dropped the assessment on the land, so that the new pilot, if it's on land only, is $450,000 less than it was. But the total assessment on the big property is 1.75 million. That's what the new assessment is on the big property, on the main piece. So that's what these last few years, since the pilot ended December of '21, since '22, it's been based on assessment, whatever it was, and the chip on roll. So the new land assessment though, going forward is $350,000, $400,000 difference from what it was last year.
So they want the pilot just on the land and not the.
That's how they usually work. They're land only for a little while, and then they increment up, but I haven't seen the payment schedule, so I don't know.
so instead of going on this, why don't we do this, if you don't mind? What we should do is the school district, the county, and the town need to figure out, looking at now what they back owe, what's a reasonable payment schedule, how that might look. And then we'll put that together with what we have in the pilot, everybody review it before we write a pilot. Is that fair? So we're not gonna write a pilot, we won't finalize this until everybody sees the payment schedule. Which I have to
That's
have,
fair.
and I have to have input from you guys on the payment schedule, so we can put that together with Dan. Okay?
It's a big hole. It's hard.
I know, we're trying to get out of a hole, but we're trying to figure out how to get out of
Yeah,
the hole.
that's right, yeah.
And that was why we ended up looking at a pilot. Without some help, they're never gonna get out of the hole, because they're still gonna owe $80,000 plus the three. I'm saying you can't get there from here.
You know, before everybody leaves, I'd like to have the thoughts from you people that are closer to Swain than I am, because I'm from Cuba. What do you see as the problem as they've gone through the years with this facility?
Snow.
Yes, no,
Snow.
I think everybody knows it's no.
I mean, they haven't even been able to make it this year. I mean, you've got to.
They used to start skiing when we were younger in November, Thanksgiving. I remember one time Robin Smith told me that they made their most money between Thanksgiving vacation. and
Right.
Christmas vacation.
Oh, sure they did.
They don't ski.
So the Swain people, if they came before us, could put all kinds of projections together that may not hold up because of weather.
But I think it's not just snow, it's snow
It's
and their
management.
inability to diversify their business.
Trying to do
plan.
more year-round activities.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and some people can pull it off, and other people can't. Maybe they could never do anything there other
I
than
think it's fair.
ski.
They also haven't kept up, I mean, just in speaking from a.
You know that, and I know that,
family,
yeah.
They haven't kept up with technology either.
Right.
I mean, you've got very slow lifts, and so people go to Bristol where you got the rocket lifts and stuff like that. People don't want to sit on the ski lift and take 10 minutes to get to the top of the hill.
We used to had more business in Bristol at one time. And it's switched now. All the Rochester schools used to come to ours and now they go to Bristol because they've updated everything and
Right,
changed everything. Hasn't happened this way. They got the same quads they had when I was a young person. Don't last it.
Wasn't there a time that Swain was the leading sales tax producer from the county?
You still have a big chunk, but not like they used to.
So thank you.
So that said, we've got a plan, I think, to figure out the payment schedule. Okay?
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Craig, for entertaining such a large conversation, but I think it's helpful.
Well, I think it's helpful because this is one of those things we do not want to do and upset all the taxing authorities because it makes no sense. We all want to make sure it works.
Or have more questions come up after the fact.
Right.
Or be here again in
No, thank
5
you.
years. Because they're not.
Well, I think
Right.
we're all on the same
Or
page.
60
We're on our
days.
area. would be
We're
better.
actually not far off, I don't think.
Understand what we were trying to say.
Sure.
Including
As
us.
faces changes, you
Yeah.
know.
Sure.
If you're gonna do the same thing over and over again, you're gonna get the same result.
We don't want to, that's why we want to fix it. And I think the last pilot was not the right one because like you said, Chad, I think that was the real problem is they should have never had a total rebate. They should have always been paying something to try to get them into their schedule.
Well, and this one's longer.
And then
I
it
think
ramped
that's-
up, it ramped up too quickly and that's when they had trouble.
Most of them were 10, this one's going 15. And this one, you know, in my opinion, is the same thing. You're given 10 years
Well-
for nothing, then 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. In the last 5 years, it's been, you're gonna be able to see.
Well, I want to get the whole payment schedule, including what's back owed, and then we'll figure out how we level it out so it all works for everybody, okay?
Thank you.
Do you want to send some dates out as far as trying to come together when you get a chance?
Yeah, I will, I'll send it, I want to make the town in there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Bye, Judy. You're there.
Just make sure you let the public know we do try to listen.
No. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
And thank you for taking time for all of us. Chad wanted us to come.
Well, lots of great stuff. Yeah.
No problem, yeah, 8 minutes.
See you later, yeah.
Yeah. Have fun with it.
Oh, yeah.
Nice meeting you. Take care.
Thank you, good comment, so good.
See you guys. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for.
I'm coming over.
I'm moving over here where I should.
Okay.
Just gonna hide.
You don't even take it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Can we get a motion then to defer the conversation for 30 days till the January meeting?
I'll move that.
I'll second.
Any discussion, further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Right, just to clarify for the minutes.
That's what you meant, John, right?
Yes.
Why that we just delete both of them, that's all. Okay. Jeff.
Huh? It's hot. It is hot.
Need central air. One of those little.
I think so for a while. Good heater one.
I don't know what's that. Hello?
And it's real easy, it's Jeff Piccolo 1 and 2, right?
Yeah. Big Jeff and little Jeff.
They heard it discuss the Piccolo development project, so. You can right up to the table.
Yeah, sure.
There's Jerry.
So you may want to know who's in the room.
So, everyone, I'm Jeff Piccolo. I don't know if you want to go around.
Yeah,
Sure.
John?
John Ricky, IDA. IDA.
Randy Shaler, IDA.
So Frank, idea.
Art Benjamin, IDA.
You met me, I'm Craig Clark, the director.
Sid Boyd with the Allegheny County Economic Development.
Okay.
I'm Allison Thoreau, the Allegheny County Attorney.
Okay.
Terry Ross, County Person and County Administrator.
Mike Healy, County Legislator, taxpayer.
Well, come on, we're all
I hope-
taxpayers.
I hope everyone-
I don't want you to keep saying that.
I have some cards here if anyone would like one. I'll put it in the middle.
The board has all seen your application for financial assistance, and the one thing that one of the board members who's not here today asked about was the number of jobs, and you might want to clarify that during your presentation.
So,
Oh, when you go over overview of the whole project, so.
sure. All right. So first off, once again, Jeff and Big Jeff, so what we do, a little bit about us is we do property tax auctions, we buy and renovate buildings. The first one we ever did was an old motel out on Long Island, which we wound up converting into transitional housing units for disadvantaged women. And there's 23 women that live there and rotating staff. And then rotating staff of 17 employees. And then we wound up pulling the money out of that property, which allowed us to start buying and renovating additional buildings. So I traveled throughout New York State looking for property tax auctions and buildings that I'm interested in renovating and communities that I like. And I came across the old Cosmos building, and I actually came out here on Halloween. And I dressed up on Halloween and walked around and trick-or-treated and spoke with, everyone was out and about. And I spoke with everyone out in the community, and I fell in love with the community. Everyone was so nice. I saw the building and I called him up right away, and I'm like, this is it, this is the building. So I fell in love with the building, and I just saw so much potential there. And it was a shame how it's just, I don't know if everyone's familiar with the building, the old Cosmos. So the old Cosmos, it's in the center of Elmond, the village of Elmond. It's on Main Street and Park, right? And it's a 3-story building. I could show you some historical photos of it. It's a historic building. It's from like the 1840s or 50s. And so when I fell in love with the building, I actually reached out to all the neighbors, and one of the neighbors introduced me to some of the people from the Elmond Historical Society. And they pulled up all the old newsletters and old pictures of the building, and it was fascinating, I thought. One of the ladies there actually told me about how when she was 8 years old, they took a donkey up through 2 flights of stairs to the top floor. And she remembers being a little girl riding a donkey on the top floor. And I just thought it was so interesting. There's so much history there. And it was a shame. The building's, it's condemned right now. It's in very poor shape. It's an eyesore to the community. Before we bought it, the back was collapsing and collapsed and was unsafe. So the first thing we did when we closed on the property is we assured the mayor that we would rip the back off just to make it safe and cordon off the area, because a lot of kids used to go there and hang out. So our goal for the building was originally we wanted to put all apartments in there, but we ran into a lot of issues.
Septic.
Yeah, septic issues. They used to have a special permit through the DEC called the speedy permit, where they actually treated the septic on site and then pumped it directly into the storm drains. Yeah, it's called surface discharge, which you can still do now, but it's very, very difficult and very, very expensive. If you could even get it approved. And I spoke with at least 10 different septic engineers and no one would do it. So we're actually in the process of redesigning the septic system. And we're working with the Department of Health right now, trying to get that approved. But because of the septic issues, we're limited on the amount of sewage that can be produced per day. So originally we were gonna do all apartments, but because apartments utilize more sewage than offices and retail stores, we kind of transitioned away. So right now, what we're trying to do is 5 retail stores on the first floor. 5 retail stores, 14 offices, and 6 bedrooms. So it's actually two doubles and 2 studios. So 2 bedrooms and 2 studios. All right, did that kind of fill in a little bit?
I know there's a big need in the county for professional type apartments, so I think they will rent it. I think you'll have no trouble with it.
Yeah, I hope so.
Now, there was a lot of like offices, but we were thinking if we couldn't get enough people to occupy them, businesses, we could possibly, they have like becoming big, is Airbnb offices for like people coming into town are gonna be here for a while, but they don't wanna rent the whole place permanent, for months.
Sure.
And go into a lease.
Short term, yeah.
So we were hoping that would fill.
Yeah, so to answer your question with the number of jobs, so our game plan was not to open up our own stores. If we had to, we would, but our game plan was to create the opportunity for people to start their own businesses there. So it would be 5 retail stores, 14 offices, and then 6 bedrooms. So we kind of gave an estimate based on the numbers. If someone were to rent those spaces and start their own businesses, what type of employment would that create? And I anticipated within the first 5 years there to be around 50% occupancy. So we kind of, and once again, it's all estimates because we're not the ones creating the businesses. So what I got was 4 retail store managers and 5 office managers. So it'd be 9 full-time positions being created, which would be 50% of the building being occupied.
Which is a reasonable thought, I think.
Mm-hmm. And then I did approximately $42,000 a year as a salary. Right. But once again, it would be whoever owns these would create those jobs, and depending on how much they're producing would be how many employees. And then I got years 6 through 15, I figured around a 75% occupancy. And then it would be 5 retail store managers and 9 office managers. And then year 15 plus 80% occupancy, 5 retail store managers and 9 office managers. Now, obviously, as these businesses develop and they start producing, they'll probably have to hire additional help. No one manager is going to work, from 9 in the morning until 7 at night, so this is kind of conservative, I would think.
Right. But as we talked, I'd like to have something conservative because once the IDA approves your financial assistance package, we have to hold you accountable for how many jobs you produce.
We also didn't include any like maintenance, we have to have somebody basically almost a full-time maintenance and groundskeeper there.
Sure.
And we'd be hiring to renovate to renovate the building locally, as well as local electricians, plumbers. We've actually been already, because we have to make the back safe.
Right.
So we've already brought business to the community by, we leased a 3-bedroom apartment for about 2 months.
2 months and then we came back another 2 months.
Yeah, so we stayed in the community, and we've utilized the dumpster company, the porta potty company. Yeah. So we've barely even started there and we're already bringing money into the community.
And just so the board knows, I've talked to both the village mayor and the town supervisor, and they're obviously very thrilled about what
Yeah,
you're,
they're all.
they're all on
everyone's
board
so
about
helpful.
working with them, and they endorse the fact that, you know, we, at this point, we would be the lead seeker. That's fine for them to do, us to be the lead agency. And then we'd have to put the letters out that, you know, they still have the chance to object to that, but we would do that. And then the second part would be just hold a public hearing.
Okay.
That's what we're discussing today, so. If you have questions of either Jeff or Jeff about this project, I mean, it's a really good project for all.
Yeah,
They really wanted us to put the old Cosmos back.
Yeah.
So did I.
Never get the septic back in there.
we actually, we bought a food truck, so we were considering, and I was actually talking to the department, I'm trying to get the food truck going there, because I feel like there's a need, there's so many cars that drive past that building, and it's like they just skip out and go to Hornell or to the.
Well,
to
they used to all go to Cosmos, like.
Yeah, and I feel like it's like, you get, the town has to deal with all that traffic, and they're not getting any of that revenue that's being produced. So it's, and the neighbors are all happy. One of the big things with me is I never want to impact the neighbors negatively. You know, I want to be a positive to the community and a positive to my neighbors, because I consider my neighbors my family. You know, and not to be a Debbie Downer, but recently I went to a tragedy. I lost my wife, and also.
You're okay, Jeff, that's fine.
So
Summer long, I spent half my time here and half my time at home. And my wife was very thrilled because she wanted to see this thing run. And she loved the community as well.
Thank you for doing this.
we reached out to the neighbors in the area about, you know, they were saying a coffee shop. And we said, well, we don't really want to put a coffee shop in because 7-Eleven does so good there. We don't want to hurt that. That business. We're not looking to do that, but they wanted like a sit-down type of coffee shop. So we're hoping if we can't rent, you know, and after we're done with all the construction, because that's been taking a lot out of us, we will step in and maybe open some things ourselves.
Yeah,
And get people in the neighborhood to run it, you know, get somebody to manage it for us. Because we are all over the place.
We also were talking about if you, I don't know if there's, I'll email you the designs of the building.
Okay.
So you have them.
We're waiting for the septic.
Sure.
Before we can
Yeah,
actually
so we're-
confirm the drawings. We had drawing for apartments.
Right.
We changed, you know, we were changing it, but we don't have the permanent drawings because we don't know exactly what they're gonna allow.
Sure.
But one of the ideas we were looking at doing was possibly a drive-up coffee from the back, like at the very back of the building where that extension is. We were discussing possibly having like a snack shop or like a sandwich or coffee shop for breakfast. So
It's amazing how
people just
popular
drive up
those
all
are.
around.
And the center, when you first come in, the main part of the building would have been, it would be just tables and sitting area. And we were open like a market and, like a little grocery market and, that's what people asked for over there. They was walking around and, maybe like a 5 and 10 or something.
Hey Jeff, I guess a couple things.
Sure.
Where's your location? Where are your house out of? As far as your
So we live on Long Island.
Okay. Is that, and you work out of your house here? Is that what you're?
Yeah, well, we develop properties, so we don't really have an office.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, I guess the second thing is this the first project upstate in this area?
This is the first one we're doing out of Long Island.
Okay.
So it was a big step for us.
Yeah,
So how did you find Allegheny County?
So I'm a little crazy. I drive all over whenever I get a property tax auction by myself. And I was constantly looking for, like, so it's really him and my brother and myself. My brother's an electrician. He does construction. And he just retired from the MTA, from the transit.
New York City Transit. But I'd like to say something. We found that, like, especially in Suffolk County, you can't touch property, and everything was big money.
The cost.
We found the gold mine with our first project, and it was in a tax auction, and it was an old building, an old motel, Swan Motel, and it was like forgotten about, it was falling apart. So that's what gave us the idea to start looking, and we couldn't find anything on Nassau County. So that's why, and I have friends that live up here in Watertown, and my cousin lives in Ithaca, and we started looking around New York. We love New York, was trying to stay in New York.
So it was a stretch. I definitely convinced them to come upstate. They all wanted to stay on Long Island. I was willing to go wherever, as long as I liked the community and liked the building. And when I saw this building, I called him right up. I'm like, Dad, this is it. And it was the same thing with the first property. We got the old motel. When we visited it, I'm like, Dad, this is it. This is what I wanted. And we all teamed up, and I took a mortgage out of my house. Actually, the day after me and my wife paid off our house, I convinced her to let me take a mortgage of $500,000 against the house, and I bought an old motel with no experience doing any. I didn't. She had the house before I even met her, so I never even bought a piece of property up to this point. And I convinced her to let me borrow against our house and buy an old motel. And I emptied my 401k, quit my job, and went 110% into it. And then halfway through working on
Your
it,
in-laws were happy.
yeah, they were not. They were afraid. And then halfway through it, so he just retired. Growing up, he used to do side jobs, do construction. He built our old house that I grew up in, and our second house I grew up in. And but he never had the ability to buy and renovate and flip properties for himself or rent properties for himself. Financially, he didn't have the ability to.
So we did a couple smaller houses, but we couldn't get any big properties like that. That's why we started looking elsewhere.
Yeah. So I always said the second I have the ability to partner with him and actually have the money to buy and renovate something, I would. And he retired, and I put him right back to work.
His brother, my other son, he's married, got kids, so he can't do the traveling. So he's an electrical and, well, he went to school for engineering, but he's an electrical contractor on Long Island, and so he's got a couple kids. So he's not traveling too much, just mainly.
Yeah, he hasn't even been up here yet.
He's out on the park.
Any other questions of Jeff and Jeff?
And we're very open to suggestions. I think I put it in the newsletter as well, for any types of businesses or anything that people are interested in opening. I'm not set in stone on it has to be a pharmacy or it has to be a grocery store. As long as we can fit it into the building and it can fit with the sewage requirements, I'm open to suggestions on anything there that people are interested in.
And any local people that have an idea for something that they would think is needed and would like to open something, we can work with them to make it easier for them.
Okay. And just so it's clear, we're talking about being the lead agency, we're talking about a public hearing, we're not talking about a pilot at this time, but we're looking at a potential pilot. It would be the standard pilot. The only thing is the county would still have to approve this particular pilot because it is a retail-based pilot, but it's in a distressed area, so it's an acceptable use of the financial assistance that we can give. It's a distressed area.
We also wanted to, we're trying to wait for the Restore New York grant.
Right.
That's something we're interested in doing there as well.
I'll get you the contacts on it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, everyone's been so helpful. I've met, I don't know if everyone here is familiar with John Simmons. So I met John Simmons through introducing myself to the neighbor. She worked at Alfred, and he was her boss. And
Right.
And it's funny how
It's a small community.
Yeah, I'm not used to that. Well, it's not like that. And it's a relief. It really is. And it also holds people accountable when you know where they live and their aunt, their uncle, and their brother. Really, it makes people accountable and want to do good for each other. That's what I really like about this community.
Sounds exciting to me.
Yes.
Really does.
Yes.
It sounds very exciting for the town of Almond.
Yes.
And for the county as a whole. and for
Oh,
all of
yeah.
us, but
See what Walsall did with the borough's building.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm, like, this is like what I have my heart and soul into.
Right.
You know?
We can tell.
I'm not the type of person that just, if someone says, no, you can't do this, like, try to find out why and try to find a way around it. When we first bought the property, we were told we would get building permits within 24 hours when we're ready, and to start doing the work, and then, we buy the building, I rented at least the 3-bedroom apartment. I brought 5 people up with me to help clean up the property and fix the back, so it'd be safe. And I called the building, the violation officer, and he said, yeah, unfortunately, it's in a flood zone. And you're either gonna have to put it on stilts or knock it down. And I gave you misinformation. So, you know, and that really caught me off guard. So I wound up having to research FEMA's flood policy and guidelines and letters of map amendments. And I found the base level engineering map, which showed it wasn't in a flood zone, but apparently they don't use that map, even though it's from 2023, and it uses LiDAR and satellite imaging. They use an old map from like 1986 that showed it wasn't a flood zone. So I wound up having to hire a surveyor, finding out that there was a way to electronically submit to have it removed from being in a flood zone. It's called an EWOMA. And the surveyor never even did it before, so I wound up printing instructions out on how to submit the EWOMA. And I sat down with the surveyor and submitted it with him, because he never even did it before or heard of an EWOMA before. And I wound up getting it removed from being in a floodplain. So it was like a learning process. Now I constantly have a stack of books. So I have a degree in mechanical engineering, although I've never used my degree. But one of the biggest things with engineering is the ability to learn and adapt. So like, I'm pretty good at solving problems, or when I know I can't solve it, I'm not afraid to ask for help and go out and just network and ask anyone and everyone. So that's kind of how I approach problems. If I can't figure it out, I know someone else can, and I'm not afraid to ask.
You do a traffic count, you said there, or you just said you know it's business?
From their plan, I think, I don't remember if it was the Allegheny County plan, or if it was the Village of Almonds plan, but they discussed the number of cars that pass. I think it's like 8,000 cars a day.
On the road.
On Main Street. They actually have more cars on Main Street in a day than the throughway.
It's supposed to be the second most trafficked road in Allegheny County.
I'm sure it is because of 2 colleges.
Yeah, just from
I
the
would-
college back. I used to live
I think it was their planning map, the
Okay.
building planning map, and it went through and said how, I think it was like 8,000 cars a day.
And we're willing to look at a little, like someone told us about a school over here, I don't remember the town that it's in, right near here, an old school that's closed. That we're interested.
In
We're gonna look.
Belmont?
We're gonna drive past
Or
it.
Belmont, there's one in Belmont. There's almost, there's one every.
This is how we like to do it, we like to, you know, hey, look, this place is abandoned and it's not, you know, it's throwing, weeds out of it. Let's fix it and let's make it.
We got a lot of those to show.
We're not afraid
That's
of that, you know?
what we look for. But we're gonna drive past it when we leave here.
Sure.
Yeah, we live about 6 hours from here,
Right,
so it's a bit of a hike.
if you get off the island.
Yeah. I personally love upstate. It's like where, it's like my happy place. Nothing better than camping, you know, near a river with a bunch of friends and.
Long Island changed a lot.
Yeah.
It's so.
We can actually see the
so
stars.
overpopulated. I moved as far east as I could get. You know, I grew up in Central Long Island, I moved as far east as I could get, and now it's just as bad. It's
Yeah,
horrible.
he was commuting, what, 2 hours to work?
Well, 2 hours each way.
Yeah, 2 hours each
2
way.
to 3 hours each way. There was no traffic, it was 2 hours.
Yeah.
And it was like, I can't do this.
site. Any other questions, Rick? And I'll send you the presentation I created.
Sure, and I'll forward it
That
to
has
the
a
board.
bunch of, yeah.
No, thank you for
Okay.
coming.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate your time
Okay.
and your investment in the community.
Did you sign it, Jeff? Yeah.
I was gonna say, I got your name.
It's kind of easy to remember.
I got one
Yeah, yeah.
question, I'll date myself. You
Sure.
related to Brian Piccolo, who played for the,
I wish.
I'm not sure if it's the same spelling.
Actually, my uncle on my father's side did a search and said that he was a second cousin to my father.
Oh, that's fun.
Second cousin, Brian.
That's the old movie A Man Can Cry to, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
That and Rudy.
It is a
Great
great
movie.
movie.
Great movie.
That not working either?
Nah.
A lot of piccolos in Hornell too.
Are there?
Yeah.
Well, Piccolo means small in Italian.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't sign
You didn't sign it?
it. Put a ditto sign back.
My girl's 4:30.
Yeah.
All right, and if you have any questions,
Thank you.
after business starts,
Yeah.
I'm always available.
I know, he's
Oh,
been very
okay.
accessible, he's called right back, he's answered phones, so.
I try.
He got a good relationship with the community, I can tell you that.
Thank you. Yeah, everyone's so nice here. It's like, it's hard not to have a good relationship.
Don't worry, we have people that don't.
Yeah.
Well, a few of them didn't like each other, but they were good to have.
That's right.
All right. Going once, going twice, no other questions?
Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
time.
Coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, yeah.
You're driving.
No matter what.
I'll let you know what the public hearing is. Sometimes you need to email or.
Oh, no, definitely.
I'll let you know.
Yeah, okay.
We'll set it up in future weeks for the town.
Okay.
We'll be right back.
Okay, perfect. Thank
Nice
you
to
very
meet
much.
you as well.
Anything up?
Appreciate everything.
We're good.
So, see you next week, anything up?
All right, we'll see ya.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's go Howard.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks for coming, thank you,
Hey,
Terry.
see you later, Chris.
Thank you.
Have a great
Thanks,
weekend,
Terry.
everyone. See ya. Thank you.
So now we're back to just one.
They need to bring back Cosmos Pizza.
I know, I really do miss
There you
Costco.
go.
Both the
Yes, it
pizza
was.
and then the prime
Cosmo,
rib.
prime
Oh, man,
rib.
I miss the prime rib.
Is that the place across from that great big building across? from
Mall
High School?
yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, before you came in town, I mean, it was one of the best
Yeah.
places to eat in the whole area, not just,
People from Olean
they would
used to
come from
drive
all over. I
there.
mean, that's
Yeah.
how good their food
That
was.
was it, Cosmo cut, the Cosmo cut.
Oh,
That
it was
the
really
big-
good food.
All right, so we need to pass a couple resolutions.
Right.
Right? And the first is the resolution to be the lead agency for the seeker for PIC Development Holding Corp.
Right.
So can we get a motion to,
I'll move that,
One second.
that we become the lead agency.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Whoops, we have to do a.
That
roll
one's not a
call.
voice call roll.
Oh,
The
okay.
next one is.
All right. No opposed, carried. All right, now we need a resolution to become,
To hold a
or
public
to hold
hearing.
the public hearing for PIC Development, for the PIC Development Corp project.
I'll move that.
One second.
Any discussion? All right, roll call vote. Doug?
Okay.
John?
Dave.
And I vote aye.
And I'll set that up, it'll be before the next board meeting, so.
Carried. Next item is the resolution for the change in the project beneficiary. There are two resolutions, two different projects. From Oya, and they have individual names. The Oya Company, the Oya LLCs, to Delaware River Solar LLC.
And they've done projects with us before and have had no problems, so.
Craig, I have a question. There's a letter attached to, I think it's attached to both of them.
Yes,
Looks like it's the same letter.
it is the same letter.
Written to Judy, and it gives assurances that they acknowledge and agree to the local labor.
Following our
requirement.
policy, right?
Is that a policy or is that a part of
It's
our?
part of the actual signed agreement that Oya made. When
Okay,
they do the financial assistance, it's actually in there as far as one of our policies or procedures, so it's agreed upon. So Oya agreed upon it when they put in their financial assistance package. We were just clarifying that this company would follow those same rules because.
are they not obligated, are they buying, what happens when a pilot changes hand? I mean, that's basically what
Well,
we're talking about here, right?
They're always actually responsible for everything in the past pilot, but this is clarifying to make sure they read through and clarify that they agree with the local labor law. We just thought that would be good to put in there because we've had such trouble with Oya. You see what I'm saying? So they are already responsible for it. This just is a second clarification.
Okay, yeah, I'm just, there's language in, we will work with the IDA and we'll do a good faith effort.
All right, which is that's what actually our policy says.
Policy is it's a good faith effort.
Yeah, good faith effort. I don't know if I like that wording.
Well, we can always change it, but
We need to take a look.
but
at
I'm
that.
just taking,
Jesus.
we can change it.
Yeah.
I tried,
But
it's like.
But that's what it says in the policy.
Yeah, and I would also, and we're getting off the side here, but real quick, I would also be an advocate that we put together some kind of a penalty structure.
We talked about that before, and that's what I recommend.
Not have it, we'll work with you, get together as, we'll figure something out between the two of us now. We have,
Yeah.
Well, we had
you
that,
reach 50% of the objective, your penalty is 2% of the project price or whatever.
we talked about that at the last meeting. Unfortunately, you weren't here because that's what I recommended.
Oh, but I thought before that, we had decided that not to have a structure.
Right.
So now we're gonna change our mind.
Well, that's why we have to have the full board. We're not gonna do it today, but we need, the full board has to have that discussion because some of the members didn't want to have it out is what they basically said.
Yeah.
But I like to have some kind of a penalty structure, even if we only know what it is internally. Because right now, we have no idea.
Yeah.
I'm like you, Randy, I'd like to know what the rules are.
Yeah, and, we'll get together and figure this out.
I know.
Not crazy about that. Yeah, that's all I had on this, on the two of them. We have done this type thing before.
Yes.
And this is, correct me if I'm wrong, Craig, this sounds like Oya just flipped the project. They're just getting out of the project.
Basically, they're
sold
just
the
flipping
project.
these two projects, which is actually probably better because the Delaware River did do a good job for us before. So we're good.
These two other projects, then, how many did Oya have? 'Cause they just sold this.
They had 4 total.
So these are the other two.
Other two, yeah.
Okay.
They don't have any other projects
All right.
after this.
Okay.
There was the one in Cuba and they have 3 in Independence. 2 they finished, 1 they haven't.
Yeah, Cuba hasn't even.
No, but I'm just saying, now I think it'll get going.
Yeah.
All right, so
Okay.
can we get a motion for the resolution authorizing the change in project beneficiary for the Shenunda Creek, Oya Shenunda Creek to Delaware River Solar LLC?
I'll motion.
Second.
Okay. And this, I assume, has to be.
It's a
roll
voice
call.
call, yes.
Okay. Doug? John?
Aye.
I vote aye. Judy is absent. Rich is absent. Gary? And can we get the same motion or a similar motion for the other Oya project?
I'll move it.
Second.
Discussion? John?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
I vote aye. Gary? Okay. Old business.
Yes, we have a list here. Try to make it short. Mike, are you still on? Told Mike that he's,
I think so, he just.
Yes, I am.
there he is. Told him to hold tight. So Mike's gonna talk about the CBDG projects.
Yeah, thank you. I'll keep it brief, just do some updates on the two different programs. The micro enterprise program is off and running after the original 12 awards were made. We have our first draw had been already submitted to OCR to fund two of the businesses. That's been processed. We'll have a second draw coming shortly. So most of the businesses are proceeding. So far, so good. We did have one business, Alfred Art Studio. Unfortunately, they lost their lease at their location. She doesn't think she's going to be able to find another location to do the same project, and she's kind of downsizing the operations. So she graciously declined the grant. As you'll recall, there was more awards made than the CDBG funds had originally even allowed for. Additional funding being allocated to this program. So I don't think there's necessarily any action item today, but depending on kind of where that falls, because we had one business drop out, maybe there's a possibility to look further down our list and consider another award. We can entertain that, at the next meeting or whenever that's appropriate. But wanted to make you aware that we did have one project drop out so far. So proceeding forward as far as I know, and so far so good.
Mike, how much money is that one project? Or the one award grantee?
It was 35,000,
Okay.
the next for, a single.
And what was the amount that we were over and the county was gonna cover? Craig, do you recall?
He has that in front of him. I don't know. Yeah, the spreadsheet, I don't have that. I can go get it.
It was, hold on 1 second. These up quickly, looking at my spreadsheet. $85,500.
Okay.
Oh, it's for the county, yeah. That I didn't know. I
Those
apologize.
for the counties.
Yeah, county share for all of the projects, yes.
Okay.
That's so we could do all 12 with 85,000.
Okay, so I guess my question is the county gonna look at this and say, that's our 35 that we're not gonna kick in out of the 85?
I haven't had that discussion with him, but I will.
Yeah, I don't know,
You're
because
the
what
county.
basically, I thought the county just okayed 150 of the 450 to the,
That's been paid.
that's probably where it's gonna come out of, isn't it?
Well, that's what we have, no, it was additional.
You're going to the board for
Actually,
extra.
get additional money.
Okay, I don't know how that's gonna, I mean, you just have to, that has never been brought
It's not
before
been
the
brought
board.
to the
Because
board at this
they
stage.
were,
I know
a
that.
couple I spoke with thought that it was gonna come out of that. So I can't say where that.
So before we start looking at where who's the next recipient on the list, we need to get that.
That's why I
resolved,
told Mike is we ought to wait until the one's dropped out. We want to make sure we don't want to add one back in if we're not going to get the commitment.
Right, so I need.
So right now, we're down to $50,000, so.
But you're saying were they approved for 35, but nobody got the full 35, so you're only gonna get back
No, they were approved for.
for a full
35.
35,
They weren't
okay.
gonna- Yeah.
Okay, so I thought we couldn't do everybody at 100%, okay, that was 35, okay.
So that's why I told Mike we ought to hold off on looking at another company until we clarify what we're getting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the other program, just to touch on quickly and give an update, is the CARES, the COVID relief program through the CDBG funding. Where that stands, we have gotten a short extension to the end of the year on the grant to try to close last of the businesses. There's 5 remaining that have funds to draw, either full or partial amounts of their funding left to draw down. So we're working with all those right now to try to complete that. What I want to just throw out there today, and again, not an action item today, I think Craig and I can talk, strategize a little further before the next meeting. But I was talking with New York State OCR, the funding agency, on this program in another community, a different county. And they had a little bit of a remainder of funds left over from a business that didn't move forward. And the state was really pretty insistent on, we don't want this money back. So find a way to spend it, and we'll be as flexible as possible, whether that's giving you another extension of time, amending kind of the rules on, so that you can fund one of your existing businesses and give them an additional allotment of funding, whatever makes the most sense. Just, find a way to spend it. We don't want it back. So all that preamble is to say, as we're working on the final 5 here, and they're all trying to give me everything before the end of the month here to close out their program, I have a suspicion that we are going to have a little bit of remainder of money. I don't know how much that'll be yet. I know one business came up short on their projected job creation, so they're not allowed, not going to be able to draw down the full amount. Another 2 that we're still working through that. I'm hoping they'll get their full amount, but we're working through it with them. So it's very possible we'll also have a small remainder of money and be in a position to go back to OCR and say, we want to find a way to spend this. Please give us a little bit more time, but we'll have to have a discussion with Craig and I, and then of course with you about what would be our strategy on how to spend that remainder. But until I know what that number is, I think didn't want to try to kind of go down that rabbit hole today, but that's what we're looking at on that program.
Do we have any idea about how much money ballpark it might be?
Minimum it'll be 50,000 because that's what the one business that isn't meeting their requirements won't be able to take.
So it's 50,000 plus.
I don't think it.
Yeah.
50,000 plus. I don't think it'd be more than 100, but I'm hoping it's closer to 50.
Okay. Because I know we had that discussion before. We agreed that we could redistribute it between the approved companies if they think they have enough expenses, because that would make the be the easiest.
Yeah, I think that would make the most sense. There's certainly some other businesses on the list that either had reduced awards from their original ask,
right,
and definitely have the expenses. So we could do that.
I'm just thinking it's simpler and quicker. That's all. It's simpler and quicker for both parties, right?
Yes, and much simpler than trying to find new projects or something.
Right. So I would think the board would agree with that. If we could figure out how to redistribute that extra money, that would be fine, right? Remember, we cut some of them before. Any questions on that? I'll send it out once we know how much and what we think we're going to do with it, but I'll send it out to the board. Because that's in addition to hopefully spending, like what you said, probably most of the money this year, right? Because you have to, as you think you just said, as long as they've got all their expenses done by December 31st, we'll put time in January, right, to draw it down.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And we're about right now at $600,000. Will have been dispersed, so we're getting there. Any questions of Mike?
Thank you, Mike.
See, we saved you a couple hours.
It's like he froze.
Yeah, it was an eventful meeting, so.
Sorry, that would have been a long sit.
All good, thank you.
Okay, well, thanks,
Thanks.
Mike.
Okay, take care.
When we get done, Dan had texted me, he'd like to talk to us in executive session. If that's okay, when we get all done.
Western, or Gateway Center?
As far as I know, the county has told us at the last public P&D meeting that the seeker's about finished. I think the county's actually passed a resolution, is that right? Because that's the last thing to finally get that seeker done.
For funding.
No, for the actual seekers, the environmental review.
Yeah, that was a while back, right?
Yeah, I think that, but that was the last
That was,
stage.
they had to do that before we can break ground.
Right.
Did that include the right of way too? Wasn't there some?
The right of ways, easement and right of ways already been signed off.
That's
From
all
our
set.
point of view, now whether or not it has from yours, I don't know, but we've signed the actual documents. So.
Okay.
So once the seeker's done, they can go out and put the road in.
Okay.
You'll have to, water and sewer will have to still have design work done yet, but the road base will be fine.
Want me to speak to why I'm here now, since it's connected there, you want me to wait for new business?
Yeah, if you want to put it under this, that's fine.
Okay.
As long as you're short, Mike.
Well, I won't hold you any longer than I have to. I'm here, Mike Healy, from Belmont, legislator and taxpayer here. I'm here on behalf of some potential investors who are interested in establishing another fast food franchise in the Crossroads area, which we believe would double the traffic at that exit.
Agreed.
And obviously result in a substantial increase in sales tax from the non-county residents traveling I-86. So we are here to see what assistance the IDA can provide us in that direction.
You're talking about as far as if we can do any financial assistance package?
Well, we're having a little trouble having, I know one of my investors has submitted a couple applications. One was just before COVID. The other one has been not too long after COVID too.
Right.
A major chain, and it's an ordeal process that you have to go through to prove your financial liability and capabilities. And he met all those, but he never even heard back from.
Yeah, that part I can try to help if that's what you're asking. Yeah, I can help through my contacts through the IDA. Everybody else, we have contacts, and I've had contacts in the past that are these, to the actual food companies, and so I can help. The information, and we were talking earlier about which franchise we're talking about, but we'll reach out to them.
Okay, thank you.
And anyone, more
now.
than one we'll reach out to, because I think the ones we're talking about would make a big difference out of that crossroads.
Well, I think it doubled the traffic count.
Well, I know, because there are already people stopping,
So
looking
pretty
for
soon you have
food,
another
and
service
they have limited food, they really only have what they have, and it's not much.
And I like getting that sales tax from the travelers that don't live.
So yeah, we'll talk offline after this, but we'll reach out to that company and see what we can do to push it.
Okay.
Okay? Thanks, Mike. It's always nice to have somebody to help me. And I'll help them.
Well, sometimes you just gotta be gas.
I know. So that's about all on the Gateway project, so.
Thank
We're looking for funds as well. I mean, we do have some funds for the water upgrade. We're looking to have that company to work on getting some other upgrade money out there as well, so.
How's the hotel, you mentioned that?
Well, like I said, most of the people I've been talking about want to see the road base put in, and that'll make a difference. They've talked for a couple of Christmas here.
I thought, came up with another thought on that too, so we can share that.
Okay.
Old wonders.
I think the one help is obviously knowing that the infrastructure is all going forward too, not just the road. So it gives me more ammunition with the developer.
Thank
Okay.
I guess I can leave you.
Thank you. I have not too much else. I know I should have asked Allison, but Allison's in the final stages of having that road use finalized. And once that's done, I know this large scale wind will move forward, and the large solar project will also probably move forward next year. So between the two, just so you know, those are fairly heavy fees for us. They're both in the $1.5 million range. So we could be in the $1 million, because they'll probably pay the fee over 2-3 years. So we should have enough funds to consider. We need to talk about that. What would we do with those funds, both short and long term? And I know with interest rates as they are now, I know we should put them at least in a CD. 5% right now
I saw
for
5.
7 months.
Yeah, I saw that at the community bank.
So they just told me that yesterday.
Yeah.
So I have nothing else there. And then the Great Lakes Cheese Cuba facility, John and I visited Senator, I keep calling her Senator Young, but Kathy Young from Cornell and her staff who work on agriculture and food business through the extension center up there. Went through the full facility with also Empire State Development. And I think the facility obviously has some growing pains. Some of it's older, but a lot of it's really good shape. So I think we have an opportunity to have somebody move into that facility. And Great Lakes Cheese is willing to work with us on that. They have no real use of the facility yet. They're still looking to work with us to try to get somebody in there.
Do we have a package to like if somebody said, hey, I want to come in there, what can the IDA do for me?
Well, what we could do is our financial assistance package, which basically gives them a pilot and then gets out of any sales tax. We don't have any loans or anything.
No loans or anything else.
But that's why those fee structure would be the fact that we would have money to have loans.
Right.
You know, if we have enough money in the bank, then we could.
Right.
Yeah.
So eventually down the road.
That's the goal.
Okay, but as of now, it's just.
Just that, but obviously we would make sure, that's why Empire State Development was there too, because they have somebody else.
And I'd like to ask them directly what their plans are for it. You know,
Well, that's what we had
are they
that meeting
just gonna
for
sit
Monday.
on it?
No, the Monday, that's what the meeting was on Monday. They were pretty honest with it. They don't know yet.
So who did you meet with?
Great Lakes Cheese.
Great Lakes Cheese.
Yeah, what specifically?
Matt Wilkerson, and there's two other.
Two other
the guy that runs
younger
the plant,
guys.
And then the guy that from the home plant, I think he's the vice president.
I wish I'd have been there, I guess.
Yeah, he's,
Well, I got,
basically in
on Friday,
2020.
I got approval to meet, and then I called John over the weekend, and I should have called you too. It was a bigger group than I thought, one more person.
Well, and I guess there's been a lot in the newspaper about, the Franklin plant. And both the Times Herald and also I picked up an Ellicottville paper that had a big spread on it, and that gets me back to, publicity from our agency. The IDA in Caravan County, I'm looking a little bit off the tree plant here, but they put out a lot of information as to what they're involved with. And we had talked about doing that, but we haven't done it yet.
I've got a full annual report that I just was asked to do, and I'll give it to you, and then we can make it look like a press release, okay? I finally had that done. I just sent it to the county, but I'll send it to you too. Anything else? Randy?
No, I think that's it.
Could we go into an executive session again to talk to Dan, you want
We
to
got a
talk?
motion?
He listened to the whole discussion, but he wasn't on because he's only watching YouTube.
Okay.
I'll move, we go into executive session.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Dan? He's on.
Okay, Ian, how is everybody?
Good.
How's everybody
Just,
doing?
just a minute, let me shut off the, because we're not in executive session. So we want
That's
to,
what we still on, what, you know, not to keep Dan on longer, so I didn't ask the question when he was on, but does Swain have time?
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Randy, it's you. We're
You're
not gonna let you run a
welcome,
meeting
yeah.
again, man.
All right, how about any additional new business? Anything for good of the order? Motion for adjournment?
I'll move.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Go to the potty.